For the PenTest exam, for the PenTest Plus through CompTIA or CompTIA, there are some free trial questions for their CertMaster, and these are them. These are what I got anyway. So first, the question that I got was, how would you describe a null session Windows vulnerability? And that is a feature allowing anonymous connections to the IPC share and unintentional enumeration of system details. If we click See More, at the bottom, we see that. But a Windows null session vulnerability is a deliberate feature allowing connections to the inter-process communication share IPC by anonymous users. This allows for enumeration of system details as well as access to the file share. A crafted RPC request that triggers an overflow during path canonicalization describes the Windows SMB Net API vulnerability. A buffer overflow against the ntdll.dll giving system-level remote code execution describes the IIS 5.0 web dev vulnerability. Certain Unicode characters such as %255C, %255C that cause the web server to behave unexpectedly describes the Windows IIS 5.0 Unicode vulnerability. Now, for some delicious blue snarfing, what protocol does blue snarfing use to communicate with other devices? And that is the Object Exchange Protocol. What you need to know, the Object Exchange Protocol facilitates the exchange of binary objects between devices. It is used within several technologies, including Bluetooth, and is similar in functionality to HTTP. The Internet Protocol Suite, commonly referred to as TCP/IP, provides end-to-end data communication and is the basis for Internet communications. TCP/IP is not used in blue snarfing. Wi-Fi Protected Setup, WPS, is a network security standard to create a secure wireless network and is not used in blue snarfing. The Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, IEEE 802.11 protocol, is a set of media access controls and physical layer specifications for implementing wireless network. WLAN IEEE 802.15 is the specification for Bluetooth, not the protocol for communication in blue snarfing. During a pen test, you exploit a web app vulnerability and discover an Etsy shadow file containing hashes that begin with $1. What recommendation would you give to remediate the vulnerability? Hashes beginning with $1, use MD5, which is an insecure hashing algorithm that can be easily cracked. You should recommend the use of hashes that begin with $5, that's SHA-256, which is a secure hashing algorithm, or hashes that begin with $6, that's SHA-512, which is even more secure, and SHA-256 and MD5, of course. Hashes that begin with $1 already use MD5, which is an insecure hashing algorithm that can be easily cracked. An organization should never store passwords in plain text. Protocols that hash or encrypt the password, like SHA-256 or SHA-512, should be used. DES is considered a weak cryptographic cipher that can be easily cracked. Protocols that hash or encrypt the password, like SHA-256 or SHA-512, should be used. Which of these tools can exploit web app vulnerabilities? The options were Beef, OpenVAST, Nessus, and Nikto. What you need to know: Beef is the browser exploitation framework. It's a social engineering pen testing tool that focuses on web browsers. It can be used for XSS and injection attacks against a website. It can even automate the process of exploiting a number of web app vulnerabilities. Let's say, for example, there's a crappy WordPress website running on Apache and PHP, and not that that's really important, but anyways, you got a crappy WordPress, some stupid, silly plugin. It is vulnerable to an XSS vulnerability. Let's just say that it's persistent, and you manage to get Beef injected into that. Well, you send this link over to an individual, and from there, maybe you automate the creation of a WordPress admin account. Pretty neat, can definitely happen, and now you could also have a WordPress admin account, or you could just, straight up hijack the session Anyways, this is kind of going back in time, so I don't know now if there is more advanced protections on WordPress. For example, locking things down to IP. I'm sure there's plugins that can lock sessions to IPs. But anyways, that's going off topic. Let's get back on track. OpenVAS is only a vulnerability scanner and does not exploit web apps. I'm going to shorten vulnerability scanner to vuln scanner. Nessus by itself is only a vuln scanner and does not exploit web apps. Nikto is a web server, a vuln scanner, and does not exploit web apps. Cool. During a pen test engagement, you want to use Nmap scripting engine, NSE script to grab banners from every service it can discover on a host. What command would accomplish this? Our options are Nmap -pn -script vuln 192 etc. Nmap -script equals smb -os -discovery space, and we've got another IP. Nmap space -sv space 192 etc. Nmap -sv -script equals banner, and then we have an IP following. Obviously, if we are going to be, banner grabbing, more than likely we are going to use the NSE engine. So -script and call for the banner. So that's how we're going to grab banners. This is the very, very obvious answer to this question, and it's highlighted down below. The Nmap NSE script equals banner will grab banners from every service Nmap can discover on a host. In this example, the -sv command performs service verification, while the NSE script grabs the banners from the host at 192.168.1.50, as it shows above. The Nmap -sv 192.168.1.50 command will probe open ports to determine their service version and is not an NSE script. The Nmap -script equals smb -os -discovery insert IP command is used to fingerprint the operating system using SMB, not to grab banners. The Nmap -pn -script vuln 192 etc command is used to check for common vulnerabilities, not to grab banners. Very cool. We're halfway there, so this video is going to be just over 10 minutes, I'm guessing, unless I fly through it. But what reason does Hashcat claim it's fastest? The answer is that it uses GPU. The answer is not that it uses CPU, or that it uses RAM, or that it uses ROM. Hashcat purports itself to be fastest due to its ability to use the computer's GPU for cracking hashes. Hashcat uses the GPU, not CPU. It uses the GPU, not RAM. It uses the GPU, not ROM. During a pen test, you are tasked with performing dynamic analysis on running application to identify vulnerabilities. What action do you take? So we're going to be performing dynamic analysis. With that, we're not just going to review the source code for common and secure coding, like input validation. We're not going to scan the web server using Nmap, focusing on ports 80 or 443. And we're not going to perform packet inspection looking for irregularities. What we will do is send the application random inputs or unusual inputs for noting any failures or crashes resulting. So dynamic code analysis is the evaluation of an application while executing it. One technique is using fault injection or fuzzing to send random or malicious inputs. How the application responds determines the potential for vulns or vulnerabilities. For example, the application may simply crash, or it may dump contents of memory with sensitive info. In this scenario, the application is already running, which means dynamic code analysis is required. Reviewing source code is a form of static code analysis. When we make it more dynamic, we are actually injecting stuff that is processed or executed most of the time. Scanning a web server with Nmap, focusing on ports 80 HTTP and 443 HTTPS, would not identify vulnerabilities in the coding of an application, even if the application is a web app. Although NSE does support some special things. So anyway, but that's going off on another tangent. Packet inspection is not a process involved with dynamic code analysis or testing applications. Network devices like intrusion detection system, IDS, Use packet inspection to look for signatures or to detect anomalies. Why is the security of supervisory control and data acquisition SCADA systems, SCADA, I don't know, systems important? Here, what I'm going to say is that I found this answer right away in that it can cause real-world physical disasters. I mean, breaking such a control is really damaging, and we'll just read below. SCADA systems typically control real-world industrial networks that, if maliciously tampered with, can be quite catastrophic. For example, SCADA systems of a nuclear power plant have been targeted by malicious malware known as Stuxnet. SCADA systems do not power mobile devices such as smartphones. Mobile operating systems run mobile devices. SCADA systems tend to control physical devices and are unlikely to store personally identifiable information, aka PII. SCADA systems do not power sales registers. Point of sales systems power today's cash registers in the retail marketplace. What is risk appetite? This one stuck out really quickly to me because it was the shortest answer, and I read it right away and was like, yes. And risk appetite simply is the amount of risk an organization is willing to accept. And that's highlighted below. More specifically, it refers to the amount and type of potential vulnerabilities and threats the organization is willing to tolerate and endure because, obviously, business need. Risk acceptance is when an organization identifies and analyzes a risk, then determines that the risk is within acceptable limits, so no additional action is taken. Risk avoidance is when an organization takes steps to ensure that a risk has been completely eliminated or reduced to zero by terminating the process, activity, or application that is the source of the risk. Risk mitigation is a risk response technique in which an organization implements controls and countermeasures to reduce the likelihood and impact of risk, with the goal of reducing the potential effects so that they are below the organization's risk threshold. We have two more. We're going to go for about 15 minutes, I believe. How would a pen tester use the authority motivation technique in social engineering? So I definitely read this one first because of the word federal in it and just thought, wow, that sounds powerful. You would pose as a federal investigator and ask a low-level employee to help with an investigation by clicking a link. So, posing as a federal investigator gives authority to the pen tester, and it leverages the target's desire to help with an investigation. This action displays the authority motivation technique. The thought of losing all files due to ransomware invokes a negative visceral response. This action displays the fear motivation technique. Befriending a security guard builds affinity between the guard and the pen tester. This action displays a likeness motivation technique. Offering a free product only for the next 10 minutes implies that an offer will expire unless acted on quickly. This action displays the urgency motivation technique. When attacking wireless, what target do testers need to identify first? So when I looked at badge readers, I was like, no, open ports on firewalls, not really open ports on switches. SSIDs, this is what we're going to be looking at if we're trying to attack wireless systems. When testing a wireless system, a pen tester will need to identify what the wireless service set identifier, SSID, is broadcasting. The tester should identify the encryption method in use and make an assessment on how to move forward. Open ports on switches require testers to physically be on site and are not the first target in assessing a wireless system. Open ports on firewalls are not easy to access, as firewalls are often housed in locked IT closets. Badge readers will not give access to the wireless system. Last one. We're shooting for that 15. Let's go. Which of the following is not an environmental factor that can affect pen testing process? Chain of command is the answer. The chain of command is the communication path decided on before the pen testing engagement. It is not an environmental factor, but rather part of the planning process. Export restrictions are an environmental factor that can affect pen testing process, as restrictions on the shipment of or transfer of certain items such as software, technology, and services can change the plan for pen testing. Corporate policies are environmental of a factor, as they can affect pen testing because testers will need to be aware of any particular restrictions adopted by the company that is undergoing pen testing. Governmental restrictions are an environmental factor that affect pen testing, as they control the use of tools and technology during the pen testing process. That's all you get. This is powered by Amplifier, and that's it. So this is really cool. It's a trial. Anybody can go sign up for this. It's basically just public information behind a registration wall. But there you have it. Really simple and nice. In addition to this, there are several Quizlets where if you search up some of these questions, you'll find a bunch of Quizlet flashcards, and that should help you prep. Very, very good.